Good morning, Sunnyvale. Welcome. Happy Friday. We'll get started in just a moment. Good morning. Okay, everything looks to be going well. Good morning, Sunnyvale. Welcome to my weekly virtual office hours. This week's early artwork is another one from our great utility box cover-up program. So this is one of the utility boxes at the corner of Arquez and Oakmead Parkway. So this is on the far east side of Sunnyvale, just before you get into Santa Clara. And this was a really whimsical utility box art that went up. You had this character with Mother Earth. You had a whale. So it's just been fantastic. I continue to as I go from event to event, drop by the utility box art locations around the city and see if the artist might be there. And I've actually been fairly lucky. It's great to be out in the community and going from event to event. And because of that, that's one of the things that I just happen to get to see the artist when they're in the process of working on their art or doing some wrapping up. One of the artists I visited last weekend was doing the final clear coat. So after they finish the artwork, then they cover that piece of art on the utility box with a clear coat so that it weathers better. If somebody does graffiti or something of that nature, then it's in a better place as far as that's concerned, ready to be repaired, or it's much easier to remove the graffiti that's been done on top of that clear coat. So we had a little bit of graffiti on a few of the phase 1 box art cover from a year and a half ago or so. So great to see, our community being beautified, and, hearing from the artists, all they've gotten is positive responses from people driving by, people walking by. It's actually been pretty great for them. And, and just hearing their stories and how they ultimately became artists, or what they're doing, is this, one of the artists that I met earlier this week. She mainly does student or child storybook art, and this was her first larger mural. And so it's great that the city can actually encourage artists to expand and help them in that process, giving them that blank slate for them to impress the world of what their vision of what art might be. So it's really been great from that standpoint, and it's good to be out in the community as always. Let's go ahead and get started. Good morning. I'm Sunnyvale Mayor Larry Klein. Thank you for joining me again this week. This is the 172nd installment of my weekly virtual office hours. Hope everyone's doing well, staying healthy, enjoying the summer. Although I think this weekend will be a little humid. We had a little bit. I was caught in a little bit of rain on my morning run earlier today. So yes, I think there's like a 5% chance of rain all weekend, and it'll keep it cooler, but be forewarned. But it'll probably add a little bit to the humidity. We've now reached 1,243 days Since the March 16, 2020 county health order started the shelter in place in an attempt to slow the spread of COVID-19. Over 3 years ago, I converted my weekly coffee shop office hours into this weekly live stream address. And so thanks for everyone who continues to join me through the past 3 years. It's people still say they like hearing from their mayor each week, whether or not they're watching live, watching tape delayed. This weekly address has allowed me to reach a lot more people than just being out in the community. People can forward it on to their friends, to their neighbors, and this allows me to tell people what's happening in the city. Which people, it's a well-run city. We don't get a lot of press, but it allows me to provide you some of those updates, tell you about some of the upcoming events that we have, and just answer some of your questions and give you some words of encouragement. We're about to enter cold and flu season in the fall, and lots of talk about COVID. So we'll see where the fall brings us. But I just want to thank you for allowing me to continue to represent you and work for Sunnyvale. Most Fridays like today, I follow this live stream address with in-person meetings on Murphy Avenue downtown. So if you would like to reserve 15 minutes or 30 minutes with the mayor to talk about, whatever, you can email me at council@larryklein.com, and you can always see my calendar at www.larryklein.com, just to see, what events are upcoming that I'm planning to go to, and when I'll be at my office hours. But it's been fantastic to continue that, and it fills up fairly quickly. So definitely, and if you have a quick question, 1 or 2 minute question, you can always drop by and we can probably fit you in without a problem. But, a few weeks ago, a lady came by who had a stroke last year and went on and on about how thankful she was for public safety, the dispatcher staying on the phone with her, the police, and then the fire showing up, and she's on her road to recovery. But it was just fantastic to hear how much she loves the city, and thankful for what our public safety does. So it's great to be out in the community, and it's events like that happen because of that. Let's go ahead and get started and talk about what's happened at the federal, state, county, and city level over the last few weeks. 2 Saturdays ago, I had my second Walk with the Mayor event, and that was at Lakewood Park. And it was great to be out, kind of walk around Lakewood Park, see what issues the residents have. It was also their dumpster day. So there were like 20 different dumpsters, 20 plus dumpsters around Lakewood neighborhood. And so that's on kind of Lakewood and Fairwood areas around Lakewood neighborhood village. And it was great to be out there and meet the people. They have the dumpster monitors, they have, but lots of residents out on a beautiful Saturday, and met some of the kids selling lemonade, but just to hear what their issues were. Also kind of raise some issues from an Access Sunnyvale standpoint. So the mayor opened up several of those issues for them, but also just kind of showing them how to raise the issues with the city whenever they see a problem, a street light out, a cracked sidewalk, all those sorts of things, and just hear about some of their general questions about what's happening around the city was fantastic. So that was Saturday morning. That Saturday midday I was in San Jose for the showcasing of the 2 new electric trains that Caltrain has. So, there were thousands, I think over 4,000 people at Diridon Station that morning, or midday and morning, to go on tours of those electrified Caltrains. And there were giveaways and food and art and all that. But I think it's just people really want to see, the electrified Caltrains, getting rid of those diesel trains that we've had for so many years. With electrification will reduce emissions, reduce noise. It's fantastic to see those, and I just can't wait until next year when all those trains start running along the line. And they're starting to do testing overnight along from San Jose to Palo Alto. They need to, each of those trains need to have a certain amount of test period before they actually go live. So these are controlled overnight running the train. So if you hear trains overnight, and sometimes we do, sometimes we hear Union Pacific trains moving materials around and all that, but definitely having the Caltrains starting to test electrified trains, just music to my ears after being such a long-term proponent for transportation and getting electrified Caltrain to everyone, because I think that that will improve, that allow it to go faster, and it also conceivably one of the goals for Caltrain is to increase the amount of service. So you're not waiting an hour, 30 minutes for the next train. It's conceivably, the goal is every 15 minutes. And then that Saturday afternoon, I attended the 2023 Youth Leadership Summit, which was ultimately a lot of electeds and lots of youth there, but it was mainly the Youth Climate Action. The Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action Group has been built over the last few years to be a real advocate and bring students together of different ages to talk about their future, to talk about the environmental issues that face everyone and what we can do from a city, from a county, from a state standpoint. And so, we talked about new initiatives and, learned a lot about what had been done from an energy, transportation, other efforts to combat global warming. And so really happy from that standpoint of what was able to be done for being able to attend that and hear their stories and hear their ideas. So Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action Group has been just fantastic to work with, and I actually gave them a tour of the new City Hall yesterday. So it was a part of their team was doing 2 days of going to different locations around the peninsula, around Santa Clara County, the wastewater treatment plant, and other entities. But I gave them a tour of our LEED Platinum but net zero City Hall, and hearing all the features that we put in place to make sure that, for one thing, it's better for the employees, but it saves the city money in the long term because we're have enough solar panels to go net zero. So happy to do that and happy to work with that group. Last Monday night, I attended a joint town hall in Cupertino with State Senator Dave Cortese and Congressman Ro Khanna. It was great to see so many Sunnyvale residents there. They were talking about what's happening at the federal level, what's happening at the state level, and great to attend, and been big supporters and a big partnership between even though Supervisor Dave Cortese used to be our county supervisor. Now he's at the state Senate level, but we're still keep in contact, and I still lobby him on multiple issues from that standpoint. And then last Tuesday evening, I was at the Applied Material Campus, or no, Tuesday morning, I was at the Applied Material Campus in Sunnyvale with Ro Khanna for another town hall. This one talking about, meeting, it was for specifically the Applied Materials employees, but, Ro Khanna was there to talk about, the CHIP Act investment. He took a tour, and it was just to answer some questions at the federal level and at the city level on what we're doing, for moving that project forward, as well as, bigger issues like AI. I have a computer science degree and have been hearing about AI for so many years, and it's part of our life already, the predictive text that's on all of our phones, but it's looking at how that will change our processes, how it will eliminate jobs. There were, programmers there that were worried about how that will affect them. And, definitely it's trying to figure out, the best ways to use the new tools. They are tools, and not completely rely on them, and how that will change the workforce. So great to be there with Congressman Khanna. And then last Tuesday evening, was a whole other thing. It was National Night Out, of course. There were block parties, multiple block parties all around Sunnyvale. A lot of them asking for the mayor, so I wasn't able to get to all the ones that I really wanted to. It was pretty much 10 to 20 minutes at each one and then off to another. And still so more than half of them, about half of them invited the mayor to come, and I made it to those, but hearing afterwards, people were like at some of the ones that didn't specifically invite the mayor, they had hoped to see me. So hopefully I'll see you next year. But yeah, it's always the first Tuesday in August is National Night Out. So definitely, I want to thank those those residents that hosted National Night Outs. It's great to see, the fire trucks, the canine officers, the council members, CERT and the library staff kind of go out into the community to get better to know them, and it's also what that event is getting neighbors to know neighbors. And, I think that's one of the best things about it. It's like seeing, people, especially post-COVID, really appreciate getting to know all their neighbors. And, I think post-COVID, we've really just rediscovered that importance of being there in person, of meeting new people. And, definitely this for me is what makes Sunnyvale the happiest city in the nation. It's just that love for public safety, our public safety officers, as well as just, events like that, which bring the community across our city together. So looking forward to next year. If you didn't have one this year, definitely start planning now and looking at the first Tuesday in October every year as a national event. And then last Thursday morning, we had the Fire Academy graduation at the Sunnyvale Community Center. There were 7 Sunnyvale cadets, 2 Gilroy Fire cadets, and 4 Santa Clara County Fire Department cadets. And so, the mayor always gets a chance to welcome them cadets, thank them and their families for going, thank them for going to the program. Thanks the families and their friends for supporting them in this career that they've chosen. But from a Sunnyvale standpoint, it was really fantastic because like 5 of the 7 cadets that were graduating were transfers from other police departments, meaning, it shows that a lot of other departments see the value of our model. And, from a experience standpoint, getting seasoned officers that want to be both police officers and fire officers, it's our merge model, really makes a difference from that standpoint. It shows that we're getting some of the best of the best. And there were transfers from Monterey County Police Department or Sheriff's Department and Santa Clara County Sheriff's Department, I think the city of Santa Cruz. So lots of officers that were now going through the fire training so that they can be, full officers so from a Sunnyvale Department of Public Safety standpoint. And then last Thursday night, we had a mosquito spraying of county vector control. So West Nile virus had been discovered somewhere, near, let's see, I think it was South Wolf Road in Old San Francisco. So somewhere near Wolf and Old San Francisco Road. And so, what they do is they have fog trucks that kind of drive through the community and ultimately deal with, hopefully, preventing those mosquitoes, kind of reducing the population of mosquitoes. It starts around 10 p.m. and goes for a few hours. So that was last week. Last Friday, midday after this session, after meeting multiple people downtown at Bean Scene, I visited Sunnyvale Community Services for their Ready to Learn school program. So basically, it's their backpacks. They're giving gift cards. They're trying to make sure that our students are prepared for the new school year. And school year just started yesterday for some schools, but it was great joining those volunteers that spent the day passing out those kits to families. So it was kind of a drive-through service. The families, and these were all, families that were part of the Sunnyvale Community Services the programs. But it's really great to see so many smiling faces. They gave out more than 1,000 on Friday, but at the end of multiple days of distribution, they'll estimate to give out over 2,500 different kits. And so it's backpacks, it's school supplies, it's that critical gift card that depending upon what the family's needs are, what the child's needs are, gets them new clothes or new tennis shoes, whatever it might be, so they're ready and prepared for the new school year. So if you please consider donating to Sunnyvale Community Services, they're always looking for help and assistance, and those eligible families really appreciate making sure that their students are well prepared for the school year. And then last Friday evening, I celebrated the graduates of our 2023 Youth Leadership Academy. And so this is a week-long course that we have for 7th, 8th, and 9th graders to provide life skills, to get to know public safety and what they go through, and what they're trying to do within the community. This was our first class post-COVID. We put it on hold for the last few years, but it was just great to hear from the parents, but especially the students, that really appreciated hearing from public safety team, and having those discussions on how to be better citizens, better residents, better students, how to deal with conflict resolution, how to de-escalate issues, how to be a leader within your school, within your community. I think it sets I got several emails this week, and just hearing from the students on how much they appreciate the program, how much they ultimately just appreciate being part of Sunnyvale, and how that might kind of lead them on giving them the skills to utilize for the rest of their life. So really fantastic from that standpoint. And I'm proud of what our city does of running programs like this. And then last weekend was a busy weekend. Our visitors from our sister city in Isuka, Japan, were here all weekend. And so we had a reception for them Friday afternoon, but then there were multiple events throughout the weekend. And they left, I think, Monday morning after being here for about 4 days. But it was just great to meet them. This is our 10th anniversary for them being our sister city, and having that relationship with them. And I'll actually be traveling to Isuka for a few days in October to celebrate that 10th anniversary. But it was just great to meet so many of that team, of the residents that came. The mayor wasn't able to come. He had some health issues at the last minute, so I'll be meeting him in Isuka. But they brought, they had a food program. So they basically, were partnering with the chamber. They brought multiple samples of different foods that are made specifically in Isuka. And so, they're looking to actually start shipping certain items here. You might have seen my post about Shaka Brewing, and they're looking at partnering with Isuka on a potential, either a sake or something else from what our Shaka Brewing has done here in Sunnyvale. So it's that exchange of information, that exchange of ideas, and just trying to build that friendship between our two cities. So it was a great weekend. Great to meet so many of the members that were here from Isuka, and I look forward to visiting them. And then last Saturday midday, I was at Moffett Field Chapel. It was a ceremony for the change of command for our 63rd Readiness Division, and there's lots of different efforts that happen at Moffett Field. It's managed by NASA, but there's Google, there's USGS, there's the 63rd Readiness Division, there's the 129th Search and Rescue, lots of different groups there. But but Major General Miles Davis, which I've been working with for multiple years now. He retired and after 38 years in the service, but I just really appreciated his leadership. You might have heard the cannon fire. It was pretty amazing to be so close to it. Pretty shocking to see how loud it was, but celebrating his retirement. And it was the first time that I had actually been inside the Moffett Field Chapel, and so it had been constructed just after the war, at the end of the war, 1945. And it was just amazing to see inside, stained glass windows, and it actually the front of the chapel is actually rotates because it's a multi-denominational chapel. So it's basically every quarter of that chapel, of that front of that chapel, it kind of rotates to show, or I think it's every third or quarter, shows a different denomination depending upon what service was actually being given there. But it was closed for several years, I think, but it went through a renovation. It just looks fantastic inside. And then Tuesday, as far as this week is concerned, was a very busy night from a council standpoint. We started at 5 p.m. and went almost till 1 a.m. So a long day, almost 8 hours in council. But our council meeting was started with an update on the Village Center Master Plan. And so that was a study session to talk about, what the community outreach has done, what we're doing from a city standpoint, and, for council to kind of give some direction. The big thing is, it's like these kind of retail centers at major intersections, what we can do to add housing, but make sure that we ultimately retain the retail is the critical thing. It's like, and so you continue to have, walkable communities, you add density from a housing standpoint, but then you make sure that the retail is still there, because it's the restaurants, it's the grocery stores, it's all the other stores that are support that community, which is really critical at the end of the day. And, this is always the worry of some of the state streamlining bills that, developers can come in and put in housing and reduce retail dramatically. And so it's looking at tools that we can do from a city standpoint to make sure that the only way that they get a large amount of density from a housing standpoint, a larger density, is to make sure that they retain that retail, which makes that a walkable community for the new residents, as well as all the residents that live in the neighborhoods nearby. And then for the main meeting, starting at 7, Assemblymember Evan Lowe was there. He was there to talk about ACA 5, the Marriage Equality Act. That's one of the things that he put forward, and it'll be on the ballot next year. But he also came by to give us a big check. He gave us a $1.75 million check from a state budget investment. So thank you, Evan, for Lakewood Elementary safe routes to school. So that's improving biking and pedestrian access and safety for changing bulb outs for intersections, and striping and all this other stuff for our students, for the neighbors that are near Lakewood Elementary. So happy to be able to get that check, and happy to see Evan, of course. And then from a council standpoint, our first big item was considering converting the part-time bike lanes on Homestead Road into full-time bike lanes. And so that's where we spent about 4 hours on, I think maybe over 4 hours. But it was asking a lot of good questions from staff, and then hearing from our residents. So we had lots of residents on either side, and it's very polarizing, especially in 2015, council had basically made that bike lanes part-time, meaning overnight it was parking for cars in front of the homes along Homestead Road, and during the daytime from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. it was for bikes. And for me, I would bike through there every now and then, and Mainly it was on the weekends, so it was when cars were there anyway. But it was supposed to be during the weekdays, especially making it safer for students, for people commuting to work. And I did do some bike rides Monday and Tuesday of this week, or Monday of this week. I biked through and I saw some cars, that were parked there when they shouldn't have been. And I don't know how long they'd been there. They might have been there for minutes. They might have been there for hours. I was there right at, between 5 and 6 p.m. So right at the end of the day of when, bikes still had access and still had the responsibility or the ability to bike in those lanes. But before the cars were there, but there were multiple cars there. But when I went back the following morning, 7:30, drove through Homestead, there were even more cars there that hadn't moved prior to the 7 a.m. Deadline of opening up those bike lanes for bicyclists. So ultimately, council unanimously approved removing that part-time bike lane or part-time parking and making it permanently into a bike lane. We also gave additional direction that staff will be looking at what they can do from a road diet of the lanes in order to make buffered bike lanes wherever they can across that corridor. So it's not like something that will happen immediately. It will stay the way it is right now, but in the short term. But ultimately, staff will repave, restripe, and when they and put up new signs along the way. So it's it's not something immediate, and allows those residents that live there also to look at whether or not they need to reconfigure their driveways, and there's lots of things that can be done. Some of them already had 3-4 car driveways besides the garages that they have. They actually had space to turn around and all that. So definitely it allows those residents to prepare ultimately for those full-time bike lanes. But yeah, it was it was important to hear from the residents. It's important to hear from so many people on both sides, and it was a little polarizing, but I do think that it was good to hear. And we had lots of emails that we received over the last few months, and I met with multiple groups on both sides of the issue, and it was trying to make sure that for me, it creates that safer, ultimately I think it will create a safer corridor. On the south side there were bike lanes and there were permanent bike lanes. On the north side it was that part-time effort. And hearing from commuters, hearing from especially students who had almost gotten hit and or had there'd been several collisions, but it's trying to make sure that that is safer for different schools. And it's not just Homestead High School. It's there's a middle school, there's elementary schools along that corridor, and lots of people commuting back and forth. So that was where we spent the majority of the evening. Then we heard a request from City Line concerning downtown and some of the changes for Block 6 that they would like to do. But ultimately, it's studying from a downtown specific plan, looking at adding about 200,000 square foot of office space and increasing the maximum allowable height from 75 to 85 feet for certain blocks. So we'll see where that goes, but that's kicking off that study. Council will still at a later date need to make that final decision. And finally, we authorized the purchase and sale agreement negotiations between the city of Sunnyvale and Mid-Penn Housing for the purchase of the old Wells Fargo site at McKinley and Matilda. And so, that Wells Fargo closed a few years ago, or last year, I think it was, and it was up for sale. And one of the things that on my morning runs, I'd run by there and seen, that the for sale sign had gone up. And for me, it was important to go by and bring that to the city manager's notice, and because to me it looked like a great location for additional affordable housing. Much like we did at the corner of Iowa, Charles, and Matilda. similar at one block north, doing the same thing on, from that standpoint. But Mid-Penn Housing had already started negotiations with the real estate agent, and so we started those discussions with Mid-Penn and basically saying, okay, the city would like to buy that piece of land. Depending upon, there's some environmental and other kind of research that needs to be done, but we would like to buy that piece of land so that you can focus on construction and service, and providing services. So building the budget to actually build that was the critical thing, which is what Mid-Penn is there for. But from our standpoint, what we end up getting is a piece of land in our downtown that's permanently owned by the city, which to me is really important in the long term from deciding how our city continues to evolve. That's one of the things about the related site at Iowa and Matilda. It's making sure that 20 years from now, the city owns some portion of downtown and has a bigger say in what that vision looks like. So council authorized that purchase, that depending upon what the city manager authorized the city manager to continue those negotiations and purchase the land depending upon what any studies might find out. And then on Wednesday of this week, I was at a town hall with Assembly Member Evan Lowe. He had a District 26 town hall at Mission College to talk about legislation, to hear from his constituents on a variety of topics. But I just want to thank him, thank all the residents who showed up to, and it was both young and old, to basically raise concerns about the city, give feedback on state legislation. And, it was just great talking to so many of those residents before and after. As far as COVID, as I've said previously, I won't be covering COVID numbers, but have been lots of articles about the increase of COVID and, mainly, they're continuing to monitor waste systems. And I've heard a lot more people getting COVID for the second or third time recently. So definitely be safe where you can. But there's, new strains are always, new variants are always going around. I continue to spend lots of time advocating for our city's behalf. As we already talked about, I talked about, at the state level, at the federal level, and of course at the county level too. We have lots of partners that it's really important for the mayor to be talking about our issues and how we get appropriate recognition and especially appropriate funding. So thank you for allowing me to continue to do that. Let me go ahead and announce some upcoming events. It's summertime, lots is happening. Our Sunset movie series is back starting tonight. And so that's on Fridays for the rest of August. Tonight at 7 p.m., there will be Minions, The Rise of Gru at Ortega Park. And that starts right at sunset. Next Friday at 7 p.m., there will be Top Gun Maverick at Columbia Park on Morse Avenue. And then the last Friday of the month, the 25th, there will be a Lightyear, and that'll be happening at Washington Park. So definitely I'll be dropping by at least one of those events, so I might see you there. Tomorrow, Daruma Dojo. So it's one of the self-defense academies on Murphy Avenue. They're having a back to school party from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And so they'll have free school supplies, self-defense, training, exhibitions, games, food, music. So if you're on Murphy Avenue, and so this is right near El Camino tomorrow, come by. And it's just really to help prepare Sunnyvale students for upcoming school year. And, I've been very impressed with the owner for Daruma Dojo, being at Sunnyvale Community Services events, going to the different schools. So I've been really impressed of what influence they've had in Sunnyvale already. They've only been around for about a year now. And then on Sunday at noon at Lakewood Park, there's a biking buddies ride. So this is being put on by Sunnyvale Community Services and Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition, but it's trying to teach people, young and old, about bike skills. But it should be an interesting, it's a social ride, but it's learning those educational, it's educational from the standpoint of how you should be dealing with traffic and all that. But it's a kid's ride, it's an adult's ride, but no training wheels or tricycles, and everybody needs to have a helmet. So hopefully, if you get a chance, drop by that. But that starts at Lakewood Park at noon on Sunday. As far as upcoming council meetings, our next council meeting is August 15th, and it's board and commission interviews. And then our next meeting after that will be on the 29th, and I'll talk about that next week. Let's get to our weekly questions. If you have a question, add it in the comments now. I'll try to get to it. Adi asked, why is the water at Sarah Park blue? Is the chemical non-toxic? So yes, definitely the chemicals are non-toxic. The color, the chemicals that are being added, and you'll see that at Sarah Park, you'll see that at the community center. It's there. I think you'll see that at Las Palmas. It changes the water color a little bit, but it's basically to prevent algae. But it is non-toxic. The ducks aren't dying, or geese aren't dying from that. People aren't, but it's it's safe. It's safe for animals. It's safe for people from that standpoint. Anna asked, is there a map for where to find the artists? This looks like a potential bike ride. So yes, I'll be actually adding a page to LarryKlein.com later this weekend, but there is a general map of all the different locations that I posted several times, at least on some of the artist links. I don't think I've done it this week, but I think the previous 2 weeks, if you go to that, you can see all the different cross streets where phase 2 of the utility box art program is. And that goes from the south end at Belleville and Homestead to the north end of the city at Crossman and Caribbean Drive. But yeah, it covers the entire city. The first phase 1 was mainly downtown. So I'll put both, I'll put maps for both up, and so people can do that. And on the Sunnyvale website, there's actually all the 100+ pieces of art around the city. But let's focus. I'll kind of focus on the utility box art first. Jennifer asked, how can we donate supplies to SCS Ready to Learn Day for next year or for current needs? Do they only take money, or will they take supplies as well? So contact SCS. They do have a limited amount of storage, so they will take some things. That's one of the reasons why. And money is important, and especially for the families, for them to decide what that specifically child needs, whether or not it's new tennis shoes, a belt, or whatever, clothes, a jacket. It's things of that nature which allow giving gift cards to those families, help them decide. But they do a mixture of school supplies, pencils and pens and paper and binders and backpacks and all that. And so definitely, I do think that they would be happy to take them, depending upon their storage and everything else and where they are in the program. So definitely just contact SCS, and I'm sure they'll give you more information. Olwen asked, by any chance, would you be open to uploading your live stream videos to YouTube as well? The player UI is much more user-friendly. You can easily rewind if you miss something, or do 1.5 speed in parts where they're less relevant to you. Thanks for considering. Really appreciate these updates. So yes, I have gotten back into the habit of uploading these live stream addresses into YouTube. It's just another step and another, a little more time in my day as far as getting that uploaded, but it does make sense, and it's actually really great to go to the YouTube channel. So if you go to LarryKlein.com, you'll see a link to the YouTube channel. But it's really great to see all the different art, from my standpoint, that I start out with the virtual background art of the local art, and it's been interesting to see that highlighted in each of the videos as you kind of go backwards. Lewis commented, we need a summary page of all the art box designs, much like you did with the Great Sunnyvale Food and Restaurant Tour. So yes, I will be adding that to the website, and I'm continuing the restaurant tour. So you should be seeing some new restaurants pop up in the next few days. Olwen asked, do dumpster days happen in lowlanders? So dumpster days are basically residents getting together to say they would like to have a dumpster to throw away, things that they're doing, cleaning out their garages and all that. And it's just communicating with specialty waste. There needs to be some sort of monitoring to make sure that people aren't throwing away things that they're not supposed to, like cans of paint and all that. But large mattresses, although every now and then I think, in Lakewood, they had like one dumpster or two dumpsters that actually was taking, mattresses and things of that nature. So it depends on, what specialty waste can deal with, and, locating certain things, certain types of waste in different locations. Katie asked, are bicyclists required to stop at red flashing signal lights and stop signs? So yes, they are. Definitely, you see both autos and bikes that don't fully follow what the requirements are, but yes, they are supposed to stop. Although there's a big push to do the California stop, slow down and then move forward. Rosemary commented, really fun nights on Murphy on Wednesdays, wish they could last longer. So I totally agree. Downtown, the Sunnyvale Downtown Association has been doing a fantastic job over the last few years, and coming back after COVID hasn't been easy, but we're hopefully looking, to expand that to all of June, and conceivably, the big thing is a lot of different restaurants have started doing their own music on other nights of the week. So you have the Wednesday night rock, you have the Saturday night jazz, but it's very lively on Murphy as far as that's concerned. George asked, the disaster in Maui is really tragic. Have you any suggestions for sending support donations to people on the island? So this is always the thing about, if you're in the local community, it's much easier to provide, Red Cross with blankets and, clothes and all that. For Hawaii, not as simple. And, right now I know that there are several organizations asking for monetary donations, because then they can put that immediately to work at that local community. But yeah, it's really tragic to see, those photos and how many people have died. And it's just, to see how fire has ravaged a portion of the island, just terrible to see as far as that's concerned. That looks like all the questions, at least that I can see now. This is always the issue from a Facebook standpoint, not seeing everything that during the live session that I would hope to see. But that being said, thank you as always for the questions. Let's go ahead and wrap up. Thank you for joining me again this week. We live in interesting times. New issues come up almost every day, but I just want you to know that no matter what challenges we face them together. I'm really proud of what Sunnyvale has done over the last few years. Especially how our residents have responded to the challenges that all of us have faced. And, we faced it separately, we're facing them together. And I think that's one of the positive things about having these live stream addresses. But, I'm just thankful for everyone who gives back to their community, everyone who helps out, puts, items on their front sidewalk to give away, whether or not that's fruit that they pick from their tree, canned goods, whatever, but just showing that generosity, showing their general kindness, really warms my heart. Your actions and your attitude really do make a difference. So Sunnyvale will emerge from this as a stronger community. We're in this together, and we will get through this together. Thanks for listening. Have a fantastic weekend. Goodbye.